just did this partly as a joke, but after I put it there, I realized that that's the way actually religion and theology is done. There are no always yes and no answers. Is this thing too loud?
No.
And some original scholars actually would ask a different question from the beginning. They would say, has this happened? And if the questioner says no, he would say, we don't deal with hypotheticals. Imam Malik was like that. The one who was born and died in Medina. Imam Abu Hanifa and his school, they loved to deal with hypotheticals because they're, being in Iraq rather than in Medina, they were dealing with this very diverse. Can you lower this a little bit? Is it too loud?
No.
Okay.
Is the net covering for you?
Yeah. So he was dealing with this very complicated city and cities area. I tell the Muslims in the United States that if you think we are very, very diverse here, Muslims from all over the place, Iraq at its height was more diverse than we are now. So, their position was, well, if it hasn't happened, it may happen. So let's think it through. So that was the other question, and then the answers. And in philosophy, it's the same thing. Answer is yes, answer is no, the answer is maybe, the answer is yes and no, and what else do I have there? What else do I have there? Other, okay? In other words, what do you think it is? It's something else. And what's the last one? Wallahu a'lam. Only God knows. Okay? And the reason this is important is I tell people that the problem with the modern fundamentalists, most of whom, by the way, in the old days would have been classified as Khawarij. Those of you who remember the history, there were people called Khawarij very early on. They are the ones who killed Uthman, the third caliph, and then Ali, the fourth caliph. And Khawarij means those who extracted themselves from the main community. So the current day Osama bin Laden and so on can fairly be classified as Khawarij, just modern day Khawarij. And just as the old day Khawarij were the ones who said, the Quran says this, and since what you say is literally different, therefore you are out. Okay? And the other people said, wait a minute, no, it's not really that straightforward. Okay, because there are nuances. So if the Quran says, those who stole, السارق والسارقة فاقطعوا أيديهما, and the stealing man and the stealing woman cut their hands. Okay? Except it sounds like very definite and specific. فاقطعوا, therefore do cut their hands. But in reality, it never happened that way. Because you have to define what stealing is, you have to define how much is stolen, you have to define what is it that is stolen, you have to define the circumstances and who the person is and so on. So by the time you prove it really is stealing, you are way far down. And the result was that almost nobody got it. And even now it is very difficult to implement. And of course, the other thing is you need a society where the things that make people steal don't exist. So, the society provides for the basic necessities for people and so on. So when it is stolen, it's a deliberate act of depriving other people of their property. So it's a different thing. So even when the literal word seems to be definite and explicit, this is why we tell people, look, it's not that simple. It sounds simple, but when you derive a spiritual thing, it's fine, because you can have many. But when you derive a law that requires punishment, then it's a different matter. So anyway, so the present day, they are Khawarij. And if you look at these people, there is one thing that is common among all of them. and I can say this as a person who has qualifications as a scientist without fear of contradiction. They're all scientists. Okay. They're either engineers or computer scientists or doctors and things like that. Well, what happens in sciences if you don't have the knowledge of religion and philosophy and so on at the same time? What is characteristic of science?
Pure research.
At the most higher level, what is it? You always reduce every question to where you can say yes or no. Okay? Everything must be reduced to binary. And in fact, therefore, you never answer the question that way. You keep on, theoretical physicists actually make better philosophers and managers than experimentalists because they start with a real thing. And then they say, but we can't answer it. So you keep on stripping away from it the things you cannot answer until it gets to a stage where you can then break it down into things, and the answer is yes, no. If it is yes, you go down this way, and then you ask another question. So what the scientists do is reduce everything to a level where the answer is yes or no. Well, you cannot do that either with theology or philosophy or humans. Humans are not binary animals. Okay? And all of these so-called fundamentalists, and that is why I keep on telling people, none of them are theologians. Mm-hmm. None of these, Osama bin Laden, all the way down to these, none of them are theologians, and none of them were trained in a madrasa. Okay? They were all trained in Western institutions teaching sciences.